Greetings, heroes and Force users of all ages, and welcome back to Inside the Tauntaun, a podcast in the multiverse of fandom. As always, I'm Dino DeCandros, and I'm joined this evening by Daniel Dawson,
Hello there.
and our dear friend Alyssa Simmons is finishing up an audition to which we wish her great fortune, and may she book it.
Godspeed, my friend.
Godspeed, my friend. Well, we have important business this evening. We are talking about episode 9 of Andor, Nobody's Listening, directed by Toby Haynes, written by Bo Willimon and Tony Gilroy. And by God, we are some terrified Star Wars fans.
I don't know who you are or where you came from.
I am Iron.
I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
Smells like a new car in here.
Inside the Tauntaun, this is our opening song. Alyssa, Daniel, Dino, talking nerd stuff, come along. Inside the Tauntaun podcast, please like and subscribe.
All right, well, we've crossed over into
Space Nazis, yum.
I know I've thrown that around a lot. I mean, it's not an invention of mine, but I feel like I've thrown that around a lot on this podcast over the last 2 years, and I don't think it's ever been more earned than it was this week.
Yeah, or the last 2 weeks, really. But
the last 2 weeks, but
really, truly, they are digging very deep into that vibe, so to speak. Yeah, yikes. There were some of the most pretty scary elements in this episode, I think. At least like things that kind of stick with you, like I kind of haven't stopped thinking about God, what's her face's torture scene,
Bix's interrogation.
My God, yikes.
Yeah, so there's the happy-go-lucky kind of joyful Star Wars that's really, I don't know, it should be at the core of the brand. That's what you think of Star Wars. It's hopeful. It's
the hope is allegedly coming.
Well, yes, and we know for a fact it is. That's because it's a prequel. But
right.
A New Hope, if you will.
Yeah. Right. Well, that means that there was hope before, so this is the new hope is coming after. So,
right.
I'm hoping that we get hope. I'm hoping that we get. Assumedly, we're headed to a happy ending. I think it's going to be a maybe lukewarm is not the right word. I think it's going to be it's going to be probably solemn but hopeful. Maybe, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well. So, but what I was saying was, like, we have Star Wars, and at the very core of Star Wars is this idea of hope. And there's no Darth Vader here. There's no Death Star here. There's no Emperor here. Not a Force user around. And I have never felt less hopeful.
Yeah, right.
I just mean on screen.
Yes, right.
Like, you don't see these things on screen.
Yes.
And
I know that there is a theory out there that that these prisoners might be working on parts for
sure,
the Death Star or something like that. But I mean, that
I read that, and it's not even important at this point.
Exactly. That is the point.
The only
too,
reason
it's not important, right?
The only reason it would be fascinating is because Cassian would be helping build the weapon he goes on to help destroy.
Right.
So there's a tragic irony in that. But
it's like, I spent so much time on that.
Well, the tragedy being he would have helped kill many, many people.
Right.
But yeah, I've never felt less hopeful as far as Star Wars is concerned, and they've done it in a very simplistically evil way.
Yeah, you really do feel the hopelessness of these prisoners. It's just so sad. Yeah, I think we don't really talk about like MVPs very often, but like there were several MVPs in this episode, I think.
As far as acting performance.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
And like Andy Serkis's arc in this like episode was like
Playing
so
Kino
good.
Loy.
Yeah. I like his arc was like, because you know, like he comes off as at first as a sort of like maybe not necessarily one note, but just like this gruff and tough, like.
Well, yeah, at the core of his being is survival.
Yeah, right.
And being in order to survive in a place like this, you have to create a hierarchy and
a persona
stick to it
of sorts. Yes.
Yeah.
And he, you know, but he's like a living, breathing person in this story and has relationships with these people. And, you know, like you see him like, I mean, like it's subtle in some places and not so subtle in other places where you see him like trying to hold back his, emotions and stuff. And like, wow, the scene where he like makes the realization that there is no hope for these people, and he has just been like playing into their game this whole time, and like the doubt that you see in his face, like, my God, there's just like so many different emotions that happen. Like,
well, yeah, and that's kind of a good place to take this discussion, is that we know it to be true, but we've never seen it portrayed in this way, that what the Empire does is just drain you of the idea of hope.
Yeah.
Like it's a relentless it's relentless, and you don't matter. And it's actually that fact, and it's the title of this episode, which has which has a very interesting tie to Rogue One. But Cassian's whole point is, why can't we talk about this? They're not listening, and why would they?
Right.
Why would they?
Because they don't give a shit.
They don't give a shit, and that's ultimately what the Empire's downfall is
Totally.
That they miss what's happening in front of their eyes, but they don't give a shit because these people, they don't matter.
But we do have one anti-hero in this story who is listening. Our good friend Deetra.
Okay, so
I know that I don't know if you've listened to the last few episodes that you weren't here for, but
yes.
like I like her. I like her.
Okay,
and it's
but
weird
see, like,
that I feel that way.
Well, and I think I made that comment as well. And what I was about to say was, there's been this that's kind of been a universal commentary from people who've watched the show, is that, yeah, like, I'm kind of rooting for her. That stopped for me this week.
Yeah, that's there
it's
is
over.
Yeah, this yeah, which is interesting too. And I it's funny too, cuz and it's obviously it was like built and structured that way, cuz I sent you that interview that she did along with Cyril, the actors, I mean, and they talked about their characters, and specifically that, like, and I was just like, yeah, that comes out, because I was really rooting for her.
Right. I have her quote here where her name's Denise Go, and she's talking about how Tony Gilroy went about writing her character.
Yeah.
And she said, quote, "Tony wrote the first scenes for us to cheer for Deidre, but in the end, you don't do it anymore. She is not just a woman in a man's world, but a fascist in a world of fascists.
Right.
It was important to see that power corrodes women as much as men."
Yes.
And for a while, I think we were drawn to her because you could see her kind of being beaten down by her male superiors in the hierarchy, and we're like, okay, this is an interesting take.
We always fall for the underdog story. At least I do. I am.
Yeah,
like,
but what a clever.
She's like the Rudy of the Empire.
Yeah. Or I wouldn't even say clever, but what a... I don't know what kind of commentary this is, but I just... Evil is evil, and sometimes the more casual, the scarier it is.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And I was reading an article... I want to say it was The Ringer. It was an article in The Ringer about this episode in particular.
Mm-hmm.
and the author was talking about. Let me pull up the author's name just so Ben Lindbergh uh, did write up on the episode, and he cited
episode?
yeah, and he cited an author and Holocaust survivor named Hannah Arnett,
Okay.
and she in 1961 she traveled to Israel to document the trial of Adolf Eichmann, who was
Okay.
one of the if you're not familiar with this Nazi, he was basically
There was
the
another Adolf?
creator of the final solution.
Oh, yikes. Okay.
And what she noted about Eichmann was that, and she spoke in very theatrical terms. She said, quote, Eichmann was not Iago and he wasn't Macbeth. And there was nothing would have been farther from his mind than to determine with Richard III to prove a villain, except for an extraordinary diligence in looking out for his personal advancement. He had no motives at all.
Spooky.
And she goes on in great detail about how scary it was to see somebody who's pretty much unremarkable
Right.
be so evil.
Right. And caused like so much death and destruction.
And just for something as simple as self-preservation.
Right. Right. Just awful and terrifying. The way that it's made me feel so complicated. Because I was really rooting for her, and now she's just like complete, like that whole interrogation scene. She made me feel so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It was just awful.
Well, and it's fascinating. When she's threatening Bix with this torture,
Which is basically like the sounds of like.
We'll get into that in detail in a moment.
That is really interesting in itself too.
But I in particular, there was there's a moment Bix looks at her and she said, "Would you believe me even if I told you the truth?"
Mm-hmm.
And Deidre says,
"No,
you're
right.
You're getting tortured either way."
Yeah, I'm gonna enjoy this. It seems that a lot of them do too. Like, and that's like another like Nazi prototype that they're all just like really sadistic and
Dr. Gorst,
fucking Dr. Gorst, which is like he
played by Joshua James.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
God.
Just fucking spooky because he like looks like he's enjoying his job.
He is.
But like again, like a fairly unremarkable guy, but like, but doing like remarkable evil. And I don't know. It's so interesting too, and I love how in this show we're getting a lot of like, we're getting a lot of new things in Star Wars, like things that we've like, you're like, oh, that hasn't ever really existed in the Star Wars universe, but like I don't, and I'm not going like, that's not canon because that's never existed, but like I like it totally fits for me, and like, and I love that the world building with that, and I'm sure that there's probably some reason why maybe they never used it again, because perhaps it was even too harsh for the Empire. I don't know. We'll see, but it's basically the like the screams of like children, more or less, right?
Yeah. So there's a race called and Dr. Gorst and Deidre go into vivid detail about this, but there's a race of citizens called Dizonites, and they were a sentient species that were basically resisting.
Video game reference too, by the way. I'm curious because
I would have to look. They didn't
been making like numerous.
They have and very subtle, which I appreciate. But I think this was a creation of Tony Gilroy. But
I'm going to Wikipedia right now.
So this was a sentient species that was opposing the Empire, and the Empire exterminates them, and.
Just as you said that, I was reading it.
Yeah, and what the Empire did was they record the dying screams of this race, which which Deidre refers to as a choral agonized pleading.
Yeah, and honestly, this is a creation for this show.
Yeah.
I'm this, at least according to Wikipedia, it's the only time it's ever showed up.
And
which is
to
interesting. I love
make
that.
things worse, it's the cries of the children in particular.
Which, you know, we have like built into our system, like our human like psyche, we have like that the sound of like babies crying is like an automatic like
or
trigger.
anything done to children ever is just a non-start. I mean, to anyone, of course, but you involve children and it goes up a level.
Yeah, at least one or two. Yeah,
and the Empire basically takes these recordings and administers a very intense form of psychological torture through a headset. And that scene in particular, how it was shot, and then more importantly in the sound editing.
Yeah.
Where once the headphones go on, you don't hear anything. There's no music, there's nothing. All you see is her screaming.
I mean, that's like horror movie direction.
It is
like it's classic horror movie trope, because like we're all like waiting on bated breath for that sound to know what it sounds like, because it's so torturous. But that like all we get is her blood curdling scream, which is honestly scarier.
It is. It is suffocating, and it's there's a claustrophobic element to it, and
she's fucked now.
How do you come back from that?
Well, I mean, clearly, we saw what it did to her friend.
Yeah.
So, you know,
and I got to give credit.
And he actually, at least what it sounded like, it sounded like he did comply. You know, and she's like she's like complying adjacent.
Right.
Like I feel like she's, well, I don't know. We'll see. I guess everybody has their own constitution, if you will.
Yeah.
But I don't think she's coming out this, unscathed.
No, and credit to Adria Arona, who plays Bix.
Yeah, she did a great job.
Unbelievable job.
Yeah, really good.
So that's doesn't it? I don't know. I had a moment where I think what I've loved about Andor is that I know how it fits into the Star Wars universe. It totally fits in the Star Wars universe, but I'm not sitting here thinking about the wider galaxy,
right?
Or all the other movies or properties. I'm just thinking about this story.
How it wraps in, yeah.
But when I do allow myself to think about how this eventually leads into Rogue One and then the larger story, doesn't it make all of the lines from A New Hope all the way to Return of the Jedi, where they talk about many Bothans died to bring us this information. Mon Mothma says things. That, and then seeing stuff like this and how it paints a picture of actual sacrifice, and anytime you see the Emperor or Vader now, and it's like that you now know what they are truly capable of,
what they created.
The Tarkins of the world. I don't know.
The only time I ever thought about the greater universe was thinking about oh gosh, what is his name? Isn't Wolf in his name? He's like the guy that was like basically in A New Hope. He was sitting at the conference table like with Darth Vader, and
Oh, Yularen.
Yularen, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
the head of the ISB.
Yes, yeah. Right. And he's also like, friends with Thrawn. So I was thinking about he's like, reporting to Thrawn probably around this point. So they're, that was like the only time I was really thinking. I mean, Thrawn's not showing up in the show. That would be like a major surprise. But like, it's not the show for him to like make a.
No, and Yularen is a great character to pull from, because while he has very little screen time, they've really, even since the Disney acquisition, they've really pumped up his role, and he's shown up in several books, and as the head of the call it the SS. I mean,
right. Totally.
That's what these guys, the ISB is. Yeah, so that's where we find Bix and Deidre, and while we're on the topic, because we'll jump to
While we're on
Andor,
the
and
subject.
we'll jump to the there's basically two arcs concurrent in this episode. It's what's going on in the prison, and then what's going on with Bix. And
well, and like a a little sprinkle of a third with Mon Mothma and Vel.
yes, yeah.
Which is also very
So,
interesting.
staying on the Deidre topic, we then have a very fascinating interaction with Cyril outside of the ISB.
God. So you know how I mean, like I at the beginning of all this, I was like, we were like, which like characters are we most excited for? Like, and I was like,
Yeah.
I want to know everything about Cyril. I'm like, because he's so multi-layered. Like, there's something going on, and I don't know what it is. And he continues to surprise me. Like, I'm like, what is this guy? He like randomly professes his love for Deidre. I mean, like it makes sense. Like, honestly, like I was surprised by it because it was just it felt so out of the blue, but also like the guy is clearly like he's a recluse. He's lives with his mom, and like obviously there's issues happening, like and like that run deeper, and I think that they're kind of leaving a lot to for you to fill in the blanks, but I think that there's a psychological issue at stake here, and he I'm very interested to see where it goes, because it's probably nothing good. Originally I was thinking that like, oh, maybe there's like a chance that he'll make like a random 180-degree turn and start like helping the resistance, but like that doesn't seem likely anymore. Like, if anything, like I think that he's going to do something really terrible. Either that, or he's just going to continue to get in Deidre's way, and that's why she doesn't succeed in, like, stopping the rebels' plans. Like, because we both want the same thing, and, like, by continuing to push and push and push, he actually, like, ruins her plans.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of it. I'm not sure.
Which I love.
I'm not sure I have a prediction right now. I'm like, what a fascinating little dynamic we have here. How creepy, and she's kind of into it.
Yeah. I kind of gathered that too. I mean, she was obviously just as surprised and like, huh? And I think she was almost kind of like the voice of the audience for a second, because all of us were like, what? Yeah, so
but like this little weird, is it this relationship that might be her undoing? Yeah. I mean, like,
it is anybody's game. It's anybody's game at this point. I do not know, and I'm obsessed with that. She yeah, my imagination runs wild. There's several things that I think it could be, but like at this point I have made several predictions, and most of them have been wrong. Although, there was one prediction, I don't know if we want to move on to this yet, but one prediction that both me and Alyssa made last episode that you weren't here for, but we talked about, because there was just a very passing line that Vel's girlfriend said to her to kind of like, sort of dig at her about her upbringing, and that she was like, running away from being the rich daughter or something like that. I can't remember. And she's like, wow, that was really harsh, and we were like, oh God. Okay. So, cause that could have just meant, like just more world building, and we, think nothing of it, but also we were thinking, well, it could definitely come back, in the form of some really big deal. And apparently it was. We thought that maybe she might be related to Mon Mothma, and she is.
Well done.
Wow.
Well done.
Wow. We didn't say cousin though, but
well done.
We can confidently give ourselves some pats on the back.
Please do.
Very, very happy about it. But yeah, very, very interesting. Yeah, just a fun, interesting dynamic. That totally checks out.
Yeah.
And adds a lot of just a lot of depth to Mon Mothma's character too, because like
Gosh.
just knowing her background and like the we're hearing like little like bips and boops about Chandrilla and like their customs, which I think is really cool, and it's mysterious. Like she's talking about like even their drinks that they drink is just like interesting to me. These little itty bitty details that just add so much color and flavor. She's talking about a pilgrimage that she's going on or something, or I mean that she's pretending that she's going on, which is also interesting. It's like, well, what does that mean? And the fact that they have like arranged marriages on Shindril. I mean, all these things. It's just like wonderful little bips and boops. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm Genevieve O'Reilly again. Has done such a compelling job of bringing Mon Mothma to life.
She's perfect.
And
and she's so good at the. I mean, Two-Face sounds negative because I mean, cause
no.
But like,
I mean, secretive. I mean,
yeah,
she's
wearing so many hats,
right,
and different masks. And doing it so well, to the point where she's even fooling us, like it's delicious to watch. It's very fun.
Well, and she has her own relationship dynamics at play where
you could stick her right into a 007 movie and it would she would fit so easily.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
I mean,
yes. I'd love to see her in a Bond movie.
Right?
Yeah. But her marital, we're getting an exploration into her home life and how
I love
sad it is.
Yeah, yeah. That extra flavor is so interesting.
And she's having, that's supposed to be the place where you find refuge, and she can't even find it at home.
Yeah, her dad.
And now there's the very real prospect that the Empire is going to go sniffing around her finances, and it's scary. It's like borrowed time. It's like eventually, and we know she does this. You do officially have to declare yourself in rebellion, and she's not quite ready to do that yet.
Right.
She doesn't have her ducks in the row. So it all comes down to it's just this scary game of cat and mouse, and
because at some point she's gonna have to leave.
Right, and
I mean, assumedly, right? Because I mean, they're like. I mean, that's going to be fun to see. I mean, we're probably going to see the moment where she's like, well, I can't hide anymore.
Right.
Like, and I gotta leave.
Well, and another interesting aspect that I'm glad this show is actually showing us is her at work in the Senate itself.
Yeah.
And what a joke that body is under the Empire. And it's just this hollow building
and people
with
are
all
just
these
like,
senators.
Boo! Get off the stage, you idiot!
And
long live the Empire!
And how the Empire kind of tolerates her as a nuisance.
Yeah, right.
And she does that. She keeps up the appearance of being a nuisance to hide what she's really doing.
Right.
And
it's just so smart. It's so
it really is. It's just be an irritation.
Hiding in plain sight, more or less.
Yeah, she's like, I'm an irritation.
Because nobody would be that dumb to I mean, dumb is maybe not the right word, but I mean, kind of because it seems like it would be way too obvious for this one that's like dissenting all the time to actually be like planning this giant rebellion right in front of their faces.
Right.
But again, they don't care because they're stupid.
Yeah, and
nobody's listening.
And if you don't care for long enough,
that was the common theme, and it was like it didn't feel like it was beating us over the head, like it was annoying. It was like it was just it was a great title for the episode because in every arc there you could say the same, like this title was for this person. Oh wait, no, it's for this person. No, wait, it's like literally for everybody in the show. Nobody's listening. It was yeah.
Well, and it takes me back to Rogue One, when the question's asked, "Do you think anyone's listening?"
Oh,
when Cassian and Jyn are are on the elevator down
Yeah.
to the beach, the Scarif.
Totally.
And
After
the question
they
gets
send her
asked,
a signal.
do you think anyone's listening? I was like, oh
What a
my God.
sad thing that they would never. They don't.
And
Nobody
they
will never
were.
know. Yeah, they were.
And they were listening.
Yeah, because they don't get confirmation, right?
No.
Yeah, they just have to like cross
And-
their fingers and
Well, yeah,
die.
and she says, I do.
Yeah.
When he says, do you think anyone's listening? He says, I do. And it's the idea, it's faith.
It's
It's hope.
hope. Oh my God.
Yeah.
He said it.
He said it. Something
New hope, if you will.
to go back to Andy Serkis, something Kino does not have. And it's not until we surmise that the Empire has just killed off an entire workforce
Oh my God.
in the adjacent pod.
That was the chills that I received. I'm just receiving them again. But it was such a well directed moment. Like the electricity going out, the fear in everybody's faces, like the chaos that was ensuing, and like panning like from like the people like trying to talk to the people, you know, down below with their hand signals and stuff like that, and just like nobody knowing what was going on, and like hearing the rumors, and then seeing Andy Serkis's face kind of like go through it, and like, you know, trying to deny it in his head, but then like coming to the realization, and it was scary. It was like it felt like, and I've talked about with this Alyssa too. There's always a sense of unease and like danger in the show.
Yeah.
You know, and I part of that too is the music too. The music is great. Like it sets the mood so well. But yeah, I really, and the idea that they were willing to just off an entire floor of people says a lot.
It does, and I think it was Melshi who has a small role in Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of Cassian's rebels, and he said something to the effect of, "You're only here until they don't want you anymore."
Yeah, right.
And as you just said, that scene where they're all frozen in place, and he's like, "You're gonna." We've all heard a rumor. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not.
Yeah.
Either way, you know nothing.
Right.
We know nothing.
Get the job done.
And to harken back to the conversation Cassian was trying to have with him about, you know, how many guards on each floor.
Yes.
And Kino saying, "Look, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
We're not
It's
doing
not my
this."
thing. Shut the fuck
And then
up.
to end the episode with no more than 12.
It's just
like,
so
oh,
wonderful.
God,
So-
Star Wars has no business going this hard.
It's just great. And I got the chills that I got. So like and that's interesting too, going back to like my original thought about how it feels like we're kind of getting like little trilogies.
Yes.
And this like out of the last two episodes or out of the last three episodes that we got, 7, 8, and 9, this one is the only one that felt like it had like, even though they didn't like escape or anything, it felt like it was a definitive end. Like it was a great teaser for what's about to happen next.
Yes.
Like the other episodes just kind of like, oh, it's over.
So, I mean, how much do you want to bet the next episode, which we assume is the escape, is Kino and Cassian trying to find creative ways not to touch the floor?
Yeah, totally.
It's going to be nuts.
It's going to be so cool because, I mean, they've already set up this, it kind of like, you know, Mission Impossible style, like at, you know, when he was coming into the prison for the first time.
Yes.
You know, he's just like clocking everything, you know, all of the people, you know, all of the the officers that like aren't at their post when they're supposed to be, you know, the fact that they have a level that's like understaffed, the fact that, you know, there's certain parts of things that aren't electrified and other things that are, and you know, and he's like hearing the amount of seconds that certain things take to charge and la la la, like they're you know, he's clocking, but like we're also clocking all these things that eventually are going to, you know, come back. Assumedly, you're right, in the next episode. That's my guess as well. That, I mean, if they don't actually escape, I think that like most of the planning is gonna happen in the next episode for sure. Because again,
Yes.
if we're going like trilogy wise, that feels like a nice finale thing. But yeah, like I'm not sure what the season arc for Andor is, and not the show, but the person. But like, if it was my guess, I would say that it was like his journey into being like, yeah, the rebellion. Like I'm for the rebellion. Like I'm not alone anymore. I'm a part of the rebellion. Fuck these guys. Let's do something about it.
Well, and interesting, like, just to show how out of touch the Empire is with what's going on under their nose.
Yeah.
Deidre's hunting for Andor, and they have him.
They already have him.
So
Well,
when
and
does that realization get made?
Well, so I'm very excited for it, because I'm like I had this thought in this episode that, because they do kind of like right towards the end of the episode, they were like talking about it, about like where he went and like what his next step was.
Right.
And I think that they're right on his coattails. And I think that when they make that realization of where he actually is when he's going to escape. And it's going to be like this, like seconds as like she's coming down to get him, he's getting away. And it's going to be this wonderful, wonderful moment. And I cannot wait, because that's going to be very, very cool. Oh man, I love this show so much. Oh, and also the going back to the Andy Serkis moment too, like, and this is, you know, it's not just Andy Serkis's moment. Like, this is like, I think that we're witnessing these key moments, these what do you call them? Like those key memories, what are they called? The you know, like from your childhood, you know, like I'm making a core memory, you know, like
yeah. Fine.
He's making these core memories that are like leading him to being like, I am for the rebellion. And I at least for me, and I think you could tell, like, because he's been sort of an observer throughout most of these episodes, like, of these terrible things that are happening, and like this one was a pretty huge one, witnessing the death of an entire floor of people, but then also witnessing this poor old man who he's been like helping throughout this entire couple episodes.
Yeah.
And watching him literally like passing away in front of his eyes, and then like they're like, well, yeah, we can't help him, so we're just gonna kill him. And like that, the utter like helplessness of that is just like it I don't think it really gets more sad and helpless than that. Like,
and nothing said about if and when he sees Bix,
right,
and what has happened there, and then
that
step
might be,
further,
that could be the final straw potentially.
that could be the final straw, or whatever they do to Marva.
Ooh,
his mom.
Oh God, Marva, no.
Who Deidre is. The only reason she hasn't tortured her yet is to lure Cassian in.
Oh, you got me so sad and scared, because you're probably right. They're going to definitely do something to her, and I don't want it. Oh, God. You're right.
And she's already said, go ahead and hang Pack. I don't care.
Oh, my God. I know. I hate that. Like, the guy's just like, I would like to hang this guy. And they're like, yeah, go right ahead. That's
She's
fine.
like, fine.
Yikes.
It's scary.
Yikes. Yeah, it's very spooky.
So yeah, there's going to be plenty for Cassian to prompt him
more
to
lovely
join.
core memories.
Yeah.
I'm just looking through my notes. I know we've been kind of like, you know, not talking in circles, but just thinking of like 100 different ways of saying how much we love the show. But like, I really have had zero complaints yet. I just
No,
am so
honestly,
thrilled.
and I've enjoyed everything up to episode 9 immensely. Episode 9 for me put Andor into one of the best TV series on television.
It's pretty effing great. Yeah.
I think it stands up there with any show I've watched this year.
Yeah, it's got a message. It says something. It's not just, it doesn't feel like fan service, which again, there's nothing wrong with that because we obviously have a thirst for that, and when we are satiated, it feels oh so delicious. But there's like the this was like the motto of 3D theatricals, not the real motto, but you shouldn't just do things that people want to see. You should also do things that people should see.
Yeah.
And,
yes.
And I think this is a great example of that. It's just something that nobody really asked for or wanted, but they decided that there was not just a story to be told, but like a message to get across. And I think it's great. Yeah, I mean I don't know. There's but I mean if you're like sitting around the writers' table and you're saying like, oh, well, let's show how bad the Empire really is, and really dig into the space Nazi thing. But I mean, like on paper that kind of, or not even on paper, just like talking about it kind of sounds like, well, we've done that 1,000 times. Like I think that everybody knows how bad they really are. But until you see Andor and you're like, oh wait, no,
right.
they're really, really bad.
But that's what we were kind of talking about at the beginning of the episode was, we've seen the Empire do horrible things. We've seen Vader do horrible things. They've destroyed
Killed
planets.
Children.
Yeah, they've blown up entire planets. But there's something about the intimacy of it.
Yeah, I think it's that
of Andor in particular that's just so scary.
Well, and they are like purposefully like triggering us with like imagery that is probably the most like on the nose as far as like Nazism goes, like with the showers, with like all of them naked in a room together, which by the way is probably the most nudity we've ever seen in Star Wars before, but in the most spooky and terrifying way. And like these like work camps basically where they're being forced into labor. So yeah, they're definitely playing with our emotions. Like, we like anybody who has ever studied the Holocaust, which should be everyone.
Yes.
You would feel triggered by this imagery for sure. I definitely was. And, so yeah, they're leaning pretty hard into it, and I think it's a good thing. I think it's
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about flavors of Star Wars, and in one corner you have Mandalorian, which
it's such a different flavor, but is so delicious.
Well, yeah, just a different tone entirely, and it has a different purpose to it. It kind of ties in. I think that relies more on the traditional Star Wars model of hope and kind of happy-go-lucky gunslinging and swashbuckling, and
the motto about how like Star Wars is family, and they're like
family.
We're creating these families,
right? This is about I don't want to say reality. I want to say more.
Well, it is like I think it's more grounded and maybe relatable because it's like it's
the human cost.
Right.
Or not. I don't want to say the human cost because we're not talking about just humans. We're the personal cost.
Yes.
What happens in the shadows that we never think about. That allows the rebellion to pull off what they pull off.
Yeah, because you always in these giant like. Big events, you get the main characters doing their thing, and then like, they blow up an entire Death Star, and you're like, yay, they blew up that big thing, that big evil thing. But you don't really think about like each individual person and their individual lives that are on space station and like what they've done to get to where they are on that space station, and
Right.
and how evil, most of them probably are, evil or complicit, but either way is still evil.
Well, and I love that the show is going to explore it because we saw it a bit in Rogue One, and we saw it a little bit in Rebels as well. As far as Saw Gerrera was concerned, how far is too far for a rebellion?
Yeah,
And we've even seen it a little bit because Mon Mothma, she's not on the sidelines, but she's very much got a foot in both camps of like, okay, I'm gonna do as much as I can financially and politically to kind of help us. But Luthen says we need the Empire to crack down on us.
Right.
We need them to come hard. And she says to him like, you know what kind of suffering you're about to trigger? And he's like, yes, and we need it.
We need it. Yeah, which is like,
and then we know Saul he's all bets are off. Like
he's a little off the rails. Yeah.
Like he if we were citizens of the Empire, we would have no problem calling him a terrorist.
Right.
That's
like he's like so far to the left. He's like right.
Yeah.
So
I love that dynamic of
totally
of how tenuous a rebel alliance really is.
Mm-hmm. And she's gonna, assumedly in the next episode, is gonna have to, make some more moral, oh gosh, what's a word?
Judgments.
Not considerations, and some, where you're, what's the word I'm looking for?
She's gonna have to compromise maybe some of her.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that was the word I was looking for.
She might be compromising some of her ethics.
Very much so, and it'll be interesting
for the greater good.
For the greater good. Either that, or it's gonna not go well, and it's going to cause some issues going forward, which would be interesting too. But yeah, I also really love this this banker dude that she's like apparently had a fling with a long time ago.
Yeah.
That like clearly that dynamic is fun too, because like she's obviously having a shitty time with her husband, and like there is some little spark going on there, and they're like.
When I loved the conversation they had in the last episode, where she was testing him.
Yeah.
And he was like, "My politics are pretty far out there," and
like, oh really?
It's like, are they? Thank God.
Yeah. And interested to see where that goes, and whether or not he makes it too.
He won't.
He probably won't, which is fucking sad.
Tony Gilroy
so
and Gareth Edwards from Rogue One, they've already set us up to. If you don't see him in the original trilogy at some point in those big rebel meetings, they probably didn't make it.
Probably not making it. Yeah. Oh man, this show is going to be so effing sad, but like in a wonderful way. I am very excited. But we have like the potentially 4 to 5 seasons of it too.
No, I think only 2.
Oh, is it really only 2?
So I think they had an idea for 4, but they're doing 2.
Oh, so that is official.
I believe so.
Okay.
And the end of season 2 is going to be Rogue One, essentially.
Wow.
Like I think Tony Gilroy said last week in an interview that season 2 is going to be heavy on Yavin and like the real construction of the Alliance and
sick.
So
I mean that'll be freaking amazing. And I guess you don't want to beat a dead bush. Beat a dead bush.
A dead horse.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean you don't want to beat a dead bush.
You definitely don't want to do that either. Yeah. So if they could get the same message done in a shorter amount of time, but like without rushing things,
they aren't.
Yeah,
they
it doesn't
aren't.
feel like they aren't. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, I think this first season wasn't rushed because they maybe thought that they had the time. So I'm just hoping the season 2 doesn't feel a little pushed because they're squeezing things.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it.
I'm not worried either. I mean, if this first season is any indication, like, just like it's, I am so thrilled.
And I think the decision to go down to 2 is better
Probably.
than
Because
trying
they could easily have stretched it out, like, you know.
painfully.
Yeah.
I think they've got the right tempo. It's a slow burn, but it's eventful, and they're achieving so much without the big set pieces, which will be coming.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
But
I mean, there has been some very impressive things
yes,
so far, though.
Visually, yes.
For sure.
But I love that we can appreciate this without some of that. That this is all backroom dealing, and it's the aspect of the prequels that a lot of people crapped on that I love. That just wasn't executed super well. Was the politics of it, and watching a republic decay.
I mean, again, not bagging on, because I mean, it's he even said it himself. Like, George Lucas is just unfortunately not the best writer.
No, if I saw somebody tweet out, and I just thought it was funny. It was like, wow, why hadn't anyone thought to do a prequel to Star Wars?
Yeah.
Before now. It's just like, oh God.
But
It's
truly,
like,
if
yeah.
you really, I mean, like, if you had, I mean, it would have been. I mean, it's this show. Like, I'm actually curious. Like, I don't think that my nephews and niece, like, would sit down and be like, this Andor show, this is pretty.
No,
this is great.
No,
Like, I don't think they would.
not yet.
Yeah, no, not yet. Eventually, for sure. But because they do love Star Wars. But this is not your family like romp. And I think
No.
you know, because I think, like, oh, you know, if you if you put these writers behind, you know, the original prequels, like, of course they're gonna be like all those political intrigue scenes are gonna be really yummy and delicious. But I mean, you know, it just would have been a very different feel, and I think that the kids would have not enjoyed it as much.
Right.
I'm like, bring back the Gungan.
Oh.
Could you imagine Jar Jar Binks with, like, good writing,
With
like,
Tony Gilroy handling the
like, what does that even look like? I don't, or what does it sound like? I don't know. I'm curious about it, though.
where we have like a really dramatic scene written where there's a conversation with Jar Jar about how you did this.
Oh my god, Jesus! I literally, though, I'm still a believer that we might see that in live action.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the book. I mean, it's in a book, so why not? I mean, we've seen Cobb Vanth in the last calendar year, so
Totally. All bets are off at this point. Anything can happen in the Star Wars universe.
it was the same book. So it was Aftermath that when Cobb
is that
Vanth
right?
was introduced in these little excerpt bits,
shit,
and Jar Jar has one of those little excerpts. Who knows?
He's on his way. Clown Jar Jar Binks is on his way.
God.
Oh, poor guy.
Well, what a fantastic episode.
What a fantastic episode.
What a fantastic series. I look forward to Wednesdays.
Yeah, me too. It's you know, now that like I don't feel as frantic as, you know, Game of Thrones and She-Hulk and
Yeah, we can kind of sink our teeth into
yeah, really
something.
Really we can actually just sit and digest something.
Oh my
and
God.
I am I feel like I am an overweight, rotund. I've eaten too much content. I'm very satiated and I feel great. You know, and I usually when I eat, I usually like to eat until I'm uncomfortable. And that's how I feel right now. I feel uncomfortably full of nerd content.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. Very thrilled about it. Speaking of Star Wars news, did you see that Acolyte made some casting announcements today?
I did. Carrie-Anne Moss. That's fun.
Baby. We got the Matrix lady. I'm excited about it. I think she's going to be awesome. I enjoy her a lot.
Yeah, I do too.
I think that I'm curious what she's going to be in the show. I'm assuming she's going to be Imperial. But Imperial doesn't even exist at that time.
No.
It's 100 years before.
Yeah.
So, like,
100 years before the prequels. So.
Right. So yeah,
So maybe some Sith action. I have no idea.
I'm pretty thrilled about it. I'm pretty thrilled. It's looks like a
Do,
good
does
cast.
does everyone get a good look at Darth Plagueis?
Oh, that would be cool. Are we gonna like?
Do we have to go through months of Darth Plagueis theories again, like we did before Force Awakens?
We sure do.
Like,
Sure do.
oh god.
And we're probably gonna get. I mean, you know, I imagine they probably would, but also, if Andor is any indication that we don't really need legacy characters in order to have a good time,
No,
they don't.
no, we really don't.
Because Yoda does exist during that time period, but they don't need him in that show, probably.
And Tony Gilroy said something. I don't remember. I don't know if this was recent when he was talking about it, or if it was when the movie came out. But he was talking about what Rian Johnson did with Last Jedi, and you can tell this guy is disappointed they did follow through on
with his vision for it.
Even if you don't agree with it, it was something Star Wars hadn't really done before.
It was a new direction for sure.
And maybe they should have doubled down on that. So I am curious, especially in light of all the news about.
It felt more. It felt like it was like Star Wars was like growing up. Is that the right word?
Well, no, it was asking questions about itself.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And turning changing what we've come to know about.
Why does it have to be this way?
The Jedi and but I'm curious, especially in light of the news that Star Wars might be reorienting and Kathleen Kennedy's kind of going through a different development cycle on what to do with the movies going forward. And I wonder if seeing the critical success Andor's had, and then
I hope they're
Rian Johnson had said recently that his movie has still been greenlit. They haven't kind of figured out
where to put it,
when they're going to get to it.
Sure.
But I wonder if we're going to give him another go and kind of lean into the uncomfortable, as it were.
Yeah.
And I hope they do.
I hope they do too. I'm ready for it. I mean, like, we're, especially now, like, I think, and maybe that's I don't want to say that that's the purpose of, like, you know, the Mandalorians and the Ahsokas and all that stuff, because we have gotten so much fan service that there's room for it now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that, you know, you can't say if they end up like going a completely different direction where like you don't get any of the bips and boops from the originals, like, or any of the legacy characters, or any of, you know, you don't get somebody in it saying "May the Force be with you." You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, I think that most of us, at least at this point, would be a little more willing to accept it, because there's just been we have enough of it.
Well, and like, Star Wars isn't changing.
No.
I just want to look at it differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's plenty of room to do that.
And that, because that's what all of us nerds love to do. We love to like break things down
and reinvent it.
Every angle, like tear it down, put it back together in a bunch of different ways, and yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's still going to have that beating heart of Star Wars.
Absolutely.
And
the fight between good and evil.
Right.
And tale as old as time.
Quite.
Oh God, rest her soul.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just
what a great time! What a great time to be a Star Wars fan.
Hell yes, hell to the yes.
Mando season 3 will be out just after the New Year, I believe.
Oh my God.
I think it's in February.
I'm so excited about that. That is major hype. Like,
yes.
My goodness.
Oh
my God, and Wakanda Forever is coming out.
I was gonna say probably the next movie you'll hear us cover is probably Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it's next week, so
more than likely,
probably.
And we also got Tales of the Jedi coming out. Did you watch that all yet?
I did.
I mean, teaser trailer. It's pretty great.
It's pretty spectacular.
yeah. And I guess that's another, you know, like we were just talking about, like the different tastes of Star Wars, and like this is like all fan service, but it is yummy.
I needed some of that Dooku goodness.
Yeah, that Dooku
Knowing
goodness.
all about him.
Teaser trailer. That's a teaser trailer.
Yeah. We'll do an episode for those 4.
Yeah, it
Or
deserves it.
yeah.
6?
6. Sorry.
6, I think.
Is
Right?
it? Yeah, it was 6.
Yeah.
They're so short.
I know. Just little bips.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Well, now what?
Well, now I say goodbye.
Now you say goodbye? Because we
No,
don't have the person that usually says goodbye, and now we're
Guys, we
never
were
screwed.
this close
This
to
is- the
to
only
all
reason
3 of
why-
us being here. We were moments away, and then Alyssa
literally
decided to be a
minutes.
professional actor.
Yeah, whatever. Jeez.
Ugh.
But yeah, this episode would have been a lot shorter because she's always the one that is like, okay, this is where it's ending, and here I go. But we're just gonna continue because she's not here. We're just gonna continue talking.
No, we've got all
until-
these. We've all got all these great thoughts, and she's not here to stop us from sharing them. So, no, I love you. That's
You're
you are very
100%
missed.
correct.
All right. Well,
Well-
this is Inside the Tauntaun, a podcast in the multiverse of fandom. I'm
Yes.
Dino Nicandros.
And I'm Daniel Dawson.
May the force be with you always.
See ya.
Inside the Tauntaun podcast. Please like and subscribe.